Hello, welcome back. Let's read some more. I've been outside shopping a bit and eating pasta with chicken. It's very cold. It's like winter outside. It's 1 p.m. I'm uploading video. So I have a lot of old airliners I like to read about. And I will make a video about it in my language Danish. I was supposed to do in English too, but I need to do it later. I need to read it 2 times. If I should do it in English, I need to read it 2 times. I don't have time to do it now because I'm always tired and sleepy. I have so many different, all this jumbo jet, Airbus, all this many I like to read about.
McDonnell Douglas MD-11. MD-100 redirects here. For the Maryland State Highway, see Maryland Route 100. The McDonnell Douglas MD-11 is an American trijet wide-body airliner manufactured by American manufacturer McDonnell Douglas, MDC, and later by Boeing. Following DC-10 development studies, the MD-11 program was launched on the 30th of December, 1986. Assembly of the first prototype began on the 9th of March, 1988. Its maiden flight occurred on the 10th of January, 1990, and it achieved Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, certification on November the 8th. The first delivery was to Finnair on December the 7th and it entered service on the 20th of December, 1990. It retains the basic tri-J configuration of the DC-10 with updated GEC F6-ATC2 or PW4000 turbofan engines. Its wingspan is slightly larger than the DC-10 and it has winglets. Its maximum takeoff weight, TOW, is increased by 14% to 630,500 pound, 286 t. Its fuselage is stretched by 11% to 202 feet, 61.6 m, to accommodate 298 passengers in 3 classes over a range of up to 7,130 nautical miles, mi, 13,200 kilometers, 8,210 mi. It features a glass cockpit that eliminates the need for a flight engineer. The MD-11 failed to meet its range and fuel burn targets, which resulted in the aircraft selling poorly, with only 200 examples built, of which roughly a quarter were freight aircraft. After retirement from passenger service, last flight being by KLM in November 2014, many of the MD-11 passenger fleet were converted into freighter specification, many of which are still in service today. The last of 200 aircraft was built in October 2000 after Boeing merged with McDonnell Douglas in 1997. Development, edit. Origins, edit. Although the MD-11 program was launched in 1986, McDonnell Douglas had started to search for a DC-10 derivative as early as 1976. 2 versions were considered then, a DC-10-10 with a fuselage stretch of 40 feet, 12 m, and a DC-10-30 stretched by 30 feet, 9.1 m. The latter version would have been capable of transporting up to 340 passengers in a multi-class configuration, or 277 passengers and their luggage over 5,300 nautical miles, 9,800 kilometers, 6,100 mi. At the same time, the manufacturer was seeking to reduce wing and engine drag on the Tri-J. Another version of the aircraft was also envisaged. The DC-10 Global aimed to counter the risks of loss of orders for the DC-10-30 that the Boeing 747 SP and its range were causing. The DC-10 Global would have incorporated more fuel tanks. While continuing their research for a new aircraft, McDonnell Douglas designated the program DC-10 Super 60, previously known for a short time as DC-10 Super 50. The Super 60 was to be an intercontinental aircraft incorporating many aerodynamic improvements in the wings, and a fuselage lengthened by 26 feet 8 inches, 8.13 m, to allow for up to 350 passengers to be seated in a mixed-class layout, compared to 275 in the same configuration of the DC-10. Following more refinements, in 1979 the DC-10 Super 60 was proposed in 3 distinct versions like the DC-8. The DC-10-61 was designed to be a high-capacity medium-range aircraft. It would have a fuselage stretch of 40 feet, 12 m, over the earlier DC-10 models, enabling it to carry 390 passengers in a mixed class or 550 passengers in an all-economy layout, similar to Boeing's later 777-300 and Airbus A340-600. Like the DC-8, the Series 62 was proposed for long-range routes. It would feature a more modest fuselage stretch of 26 feet 7 in, 8.10 m, along with an increased wingspan and fuel capacity. It would be capable of carrying up to 350 passengers, mixed class, or 440 passengers, all economy, similar to the later Boeing 777-200 or the Airbus A330-300/A340-300/500. Finally, the Series 63 would have incorporated the same fuselage as the DC-10-61 as well as the larger wing of the -62. After high-profile accidents in the 1970s, such as Turkish Airlines Flight 981 and American Airlines Flight 191, the Tri-J's reputation was seriously damaged by doubts regarding its structural integrity. For these reasons, and due to a downturn in the airline industry, all work on the Super 60 was stopped. In August 1981, a Continental Airlines DC-10-10, registration number N68048, was leased to conduct more research, particularly on the effects the newly designed winglets would have on aircraft performance. Different types of winglets were tested during that time in conjunction with NASA at the McDonnell Douglas Flight Test Facility in Yuma, Arizona and Edwards Air Force Base. McDonnell Douglas was again planning new DC-10 versions that could incorporate winglets and more efficient engines developed at the time by Pratt & Whitney, PW2037, and Rolls-Royce, RB.211-535F4. The manufacturer finally rationalized all these studies under the MD-11 Ecology Economy Efficiency designation, which was later modified to the MD-100 following some more changes. The MD-100 was proposed in 2 versions, the Series 10, having an airframe shorter by 6 feet 6 in, 1.98 m, compared to the DC-10 and seating up to 270 passengers in a mixed-class configuration, and the Series 20, incorporating a fuselage stretch of 20 feet 6 in, 6.25 m, over the DC-10 and able to seat up to 333 passengers in the same kind of configuration as the Series 10. Both versions could be powered by the same engine families as the actual MD-11 plus the RB.211-600. However, the situation for the manufacturer, and the airline industry in general, did not look bright. No new DC-10 orders were received, and many observers and customers doubted that the manufacturer would stay in business much longer. Thus, the board of directors decided in November 1983 to once again cease all work on the projected new Tri-J. The following year no new orders for the DC-10 were received. The production line was kept active thanks to earlier orders from the U.S. Air Force for 60 KC-10 tankers. McDonnell Douglas was still convinced that a new derivative for the DC-10 was needed, as shown by the second-hand market for their Series 30 and the heavier DC-10-30 version. Thus, in 1984 a new derivative aircraft version of the DC-10 was designated MD-11. From the very beginning, the MD-11X was conceived in two different versions. The MD-11X-10, based on a DC-10-30 airframe, offered a range of 6,500 nautical miles, 12,000 kilometers, 7,500 mi, with passengers. That first version would have had a maximum takeoff weight, of 580,000 pounds, 260,000 kilograms, and would have used CF6-80C2 or PW4000 engines. The MD-11X-20 was to have a longer fuselage, accommodating up to 331 passengers in a mixed-class layout, and a range of 6,000 nautical miles, 11,000 kilometers, 6,900 mi. As more orders for the DC-10 were received, McDonnell Douglas used the time gained before the end of DC-10 production to consult with potential customers and to refine the proposed new Tri-J. In July 1985, the board of directors authorized the Long Beach plant to offer the MD-11 to potential customers. At the time, the aircraft was still proposed in two versions, both with the same fuselage length, a stretch of 22 feet 3 in, 6.78 m, over the DC-10 airframe, as well as the same engine choice as the MD-11X. One version would have a range of 4,780 nautical miles, 8,850 kilometers, 5,500 mi, with a gross weight of 500,000 pounds, 230,000 kilograms, and transport up to 337 passengers, while the second would carry 331 passengers over 6,900 nautical miles, 12,800 kilometers, 7,900 mi. A year later, as several airlines had committed to the MD-11, the situation was looking optimistic. The aircraft was now a 320-seater baseline and defined as an 18 feet 7 in, 5.66 m, stretch over the DC-10-30 powered by the new advanced turbofans offered by the major engine manufacturers, giving it a range of 6,800 nautical miles, 12,600 kilometers, 7,800 mi. Other versions, such as a shortened with a range of 7,500 nautical miles, 13,900 kilometers, 8,600 mi, and all cargo offering a maximum payload of 200,970 pounds, 91,160 kilograms, and a combi with a provision for 10 freight pallets on the main deck, were proposed. Further growth of the aircraft was also foreseen, such as the MD-11 Advanced. The lack of innovation from McDonnell Douglas during the MD-11's design had been attributed to the company's declining cash flow, as it struggled with problems with its military contracts and declining orders for its commercial jets. Limited company resources resulted in the MD-11 being developed as a refinement of the existing DC-10, in contrast to rivals Airbus and Boeing, who during this period developed all new aircraft designs that would become the Airbus A330-340 and Boeing 777. As a Tri-J, The MD-11 was less fuel efficient but had a greater range than its mid-size wide-body contemporaries, which were twin jets, the existing Boeing 767 and the upcoming Airbus A330 and Boeing 777. Aerospace consultant Scott Hamilton, in a 2014 article, said that the MD-11 was classically ill-timed as it came at the end of the 3 or 4 engine era, just ahead of the real move to ETOPS with the 777. McDonnell Douglas's initiative to outsource everything but design, final assembly, and flight testing and sales of the MD-11 was also seen as contributing to the end of their commercial airline business. Launch and costs, edit. On the 30th of December, 1986, McDonnell Douglas launched the MD-11 with commitments for 52 firm orders and 40 options in 3 different versions: passenger, Combi and freighter, from 10 airlines: Alitalia, British Caledonian, Dragonair, Federal Express, Finnair, Korean Air, Scandinavian Airlines, Swissair, Thai Airways International, and Varig, and 2 leasing companies, Guinness Pete Aviation and Mitsui. Orders from Dragonair, Scandinavian, and UTA, an undisclosed customer, were cancelled by 1988. In 1987, the program was to cost $1.5 billion, equivalent to $3.45 billion in 2023, with $500 million for development and almost $1 billion for tooling and inventory. The first 52 firm orders totaled $5 billion, or $95 million each, while the A340 sold for $67 million. At certification in 1990, $2.5 billion were invested in initial production inventory, and $700 million for engineering, tools, and flight testing. While it was selling for $100 million, the initial MD-11 jets cost $120 to $150 million to produce, but this was to reduce to $90 million with manufacturing experience over the program life for an 11% gross profit margin, less than the 15% to 20% Boeing obtains. In 1992, the $1.7 billion development cost was to be spread over the first 301 aircraft produced for $100 million each. In 1995, because costs and revenues could not be reasonably estimated over the program life, MDC took a pre-tax charge of $1.838 billion, $3.36 billion in 2023. For deferred production costs and for reduced support and tooling value. In 1999, the unit cost was $132,147.5 million, equivalent to $227,253.7 million in 2023 dollars. Production and performance issues, edit. Assembly of the first MD-11 began on the 9th of March, 1988 at McDonnell Douglas's Douglas Products Division in Long Beach, California, and the mating of the fuselage with wings occurred in October of that year. The first flight was originally planned to occur in March 1989, but numerous problems with the manufacturing, delays with suppliers producing essential components, and labor industrial actions delayed the ceremonial rollout of the prototype until September of that year. Parts for the MD-11 were sourced from a global network of subcontractors and suppliers. Sub-assembly tasks were spread across the McDonnell Douglas Corporation, with the nose sub-assembly produced in St. Louis, Missouri, control surface assembly in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and structural rings fabricated in Torrance, California. The wings were manufactured by McDonnell Douglas Canada in Moulton, Ontario, near Toronto's Lester B. Pearson International Airport, before being shipped to Long Beach. Main fuselage sections for the MD-11, and previously for DC-10, KC-10 were built by General Dynamics Conveyor Division in San Diego, which were transported by barge to Long Beach Harbor and then by truck to the assembly plant. The following months of 1989 were used to prepare the prototype for its maiden flight, which finally happened on the 10th of January, 1990. The first two aircraft manufactured were intended for FedEx and thus were already fitted with the forward side cargo door. They remained with the manufacturer as test aircraft until 1991 before being completely converted to freighters and delivered to their customer. FAA certification was achieved on the 8th of November, 1990, while the European Joint Aviation Authorities, JAA, certified the MD-11 on the 17th of October, 1991, after approximately 200 separate issues were resolved. Yugoslav Airlines, already flying several DC-10s, became the first customer of the MD-11. 3 aircraft were manufactured but were never delivered due to the Yugoslav wars. The first MD-11 was delivered to Finnair on the 7th of December, 1990, and it accomplished the first revenue service by an MD-11 on the 20th of December, 1990, carrying passengers from Helsinki to Tenerife in the Canary Islands. MD-11 service in the US was inaugurated by Delta Airlines the following year. It was during this period that flaws in the MD-11's performance became apparent. It failed to meet its targets for range and fuel burn. American Airlines in particular was unimpressed with the 19 MD-11s that it received, as was Singapore Airlines, who cancelled their order for 20 MD-11s and instead ordered 20 Airbus A340-300s. American Airlines cited problems with the performance of the engines and airframe, while Singapore Airlines stated that the MD-11 could not operate on the airline's long-haul routes. Pre-flight estimates indicated that the P&W-powered MD-11 was to have a 7,000 nautical miles, 13,000 kilometers, 8,100 mi, range with 61,000 pounds, 28 t, of payload. With the Phase 1 drag reduction in place, the aircraft could only achieve its full range with 48,500 pounds, 22.0 t, of payload, or a reduced range of 6,493 nautical miles, 12,025 kilometers, 7,472 mi, with a full payload. In 1990, McDonnell Douglas, along with Pratt & Whitney and General Electric, began a modification program known as the Performance Improvement Program, PIP, to improve the aircraft's weight, fuel capacity, engine performance, and aerodynamics. McDonnell Douglas worked with NASA's Langley Research Center to study aerodynamic improvements. The PIP lasted until 1995 and recovered the range for the aircraft. However, by this point, sales of the MD-11 had already been significantly impacted. In 1995, American Airlines sold its 19 MD-11s to FedEx, as the PIP program was not sufficient for the aircraft to fly the Dallas-Fort Worth-Hong Kong route. After McDonnell Douglas merged with Boeing in 1997, the unified company decided that MD-11 production would continue exclusively with the freighter variant. In 1998, Boeing announced it would end MD-11 production after filling orders on hand due to lack of sufficient market demand. The last passenger MD-11 build was delivered to Sabena in April 1998. Assembly of the last 2 MD-11s were completed in August and October 2000. They were delivered to Lufthansa Cargo on the 22nd of February and the 25th of January 2001, respectively. Production ended because of a lack of sales, resulting from internal competition from the Boeing 767 and 777, as well as external competition from the Airbus A330/A340. McDonnell Douglas originally had projected that it would sell more than 300 MD-11 aircraft, but only 200 were built. The MD-11 assembly plant in Long Beach, California later became Boeing's facility. Design, edit. The MD-11 is a medium to long-range wide-body airliner, with two engines mounted on underwing pylons and a third engine at the base of the vertical stabilizer, which has a two-segment rudder for directional control. It is based on the DC-10 but features a stretched fuselage, increased wingspan winglets, refined airfoils on the wing and tailplane resulting in a reduced wetted area and form drag, new engines, and increased use of composites. The most significant change in the tail section is the MD-11's horizontal tail being 30% smaller than that of the DC-10-30. The horizontal tail area on the DC-10 is 1,338 square feet, 120 square meters, while on the MD-11, it's reduced to 920 square feet, 82.8 square meters. The MD-11's winglets are credited with improving fuel efficiency by about 2.5%. The MD-11 has a smaller empennage than the DC-10 it is based upon. The MD-11 features a two-crew cockpit that incorporates 6 8-inch interchangeable cathode ray tube, CRT, display units and advanced Honeywell via 2000 computers. The cockpit design is called Advanced Common Flight Tech, ACF, and is shared with the Boeing 717. Flight deck features include an electronic instrument system, a dual flight management system, a central fault display system, and a global positioning system. Category IIIB automatic landing capability for bad weather operations and future air navigation systems, FANS, are available. The MD-11 had a neutral stability design and one of the first commercial designs to employ a computer-assisted pitch forward/longitudinal stability augmentation system, (LSAS), that featured a fuel ballast tank in the tailplane, and a partly computer-driven horizontal stabilizer, to compensate for the comparatively short horizontal stabilizer. Updates to the software package made the airplane's handling characteristics in manual flight similar to those of the DC-10, despite a smaller tailplane to reduce drag and increase fuel efficiency. The MD-11 incorporates hydraulic fuses not included in the initial DC-10 design, to prevent catastrophic loss of control in the event of a hydraulic failure such as that which occurred on United Airlines Flight 232. Variants, edit. The MD-11 was manufactured in 5 variants. 1 MD-11, 131 build. The passenger variant was produced from 1988 to 1998. It was the first version on offer at the aircraft's launch in 1986 and was delivered to American Airlines, 19, Delta Airlines, 17, Swissair, 16, Japan Airlines, 10, KLM, 10, and other airlines with fewer aircraft. 2 MD-11C, 5 build. This Combi aircraft was the third variant on offer at launch in 1986 and was designed to accommodate both passengers and freight on the main deck, which featured a rear cargo compartment for up to 10 pallets, each measuring 88 by 125 inches, 2.2 m 3.2 m, or 96 by 125 inches, 2.4 m 3.2 m. The main deck cargo compartment was accessible by a large rear port-side cargo door, which measured 160 by 102 inches, 4.1 m 2.6 m. The main deck cargo volume was 10,904 cubic feet, 308.8 m. Additional freight was also carried in below-deck compartments. The MD-11C could also be configured as an all-passenger aircraft. All 5 aircraft were manufactured between 1991 and 1992 and delivered to Alitalia, the only customer for that variant. In 2005 and 2006 the airline converted them to full freighter configurations to be operated by Alitalia's cargo division. Following that division's closure, the 5 aircraft were returned to their lessor in January 2009. One MD-11 CF-6 build, the convertible freighter variant, was launched in 1991 by an order from Martinair for 3 aircraft plus 2 options. The MD